Well, hi, and welcome back to the shop. My name's John, and this is my dark and pretty chilly garage. It's January, and well, the end of January, the 31st, in fact. It's about 10 degrees outside, so even though my garage is semi-climate controlled, it's still pretty chilly in here. I did turn the heater off, so you'll be able to hear me talk. But enough about that. What I want to talk about today is the g0759. So I have had this little mill for about 3 months-ish. I ordered it sometime in November, came towards the end of November. So I'm creeping up on 3 months. I just kind of wanted to talk about brief overview, things I like, things I don't like, things that I wish were different. Really just stuff I wish I would have known when I had ordered this. I tried to do my due diligence and look at a lot of Grizzly g0704 and 0759 reviews online. Quite a few. Unfortunately, most of them are geared towards converting them to CNC. So I will eventually get there, I'm sure. But for now, I just needed a manual mill here in the basement. So this is what I picked out. So I think this was around $2,000. I did use like a 10% off thing, which was nice. However, the power feed, didn't get my 10% off on the power feed here because it wasn't shipped. It wasn't in stock at the time. There was no indication that it wasn't in stock. But other than that, Grizzly did a good job. It was fairly well packaged. It came on a pallet. This isn't a very heavy unit, so I didn't really have any trouble. The delivery company they used, I called ahead of time and said, hey, would you use DHL? I'll pay extra to have DHL. I live out in the country down the end of what is basically a minimum maintenance road. Please send it DHL. I'll pay the difference. Grizzly said, yeah, no problem. There'll be a surcharge. I said, good, as long as it's DHL, because I knew a lot of other carriers, especially with the semi-truck, they would just not deliver it to my house. So I thought I had an understanding with Grizzly to ship it DHL. They did not. They used another carrier, which I'm sure is fine. It's not like they beat up the box or anything it came in. But because they weren't DHL, they elected not to deliver it to my house, which wasn't the end of the world. But I did have to go meet them in town, or my wife did. They slid the 2 crates that this came into in the back of the truck, brought it home. I unloaded it with pallet forks on the tractor, so no big deal. I brought it inside, assembled. The base comes completely assembled. There's nothing to it. It's probably an okay unit if you want to do a little bit of work, like I did. I'll show you later. I built some adjustable base for it, and then I bolted it to the wall. But it is fairly flimsy. It's nice that it was free. The mill itself doesn't weigh much. I've seen a lot of varying estimates on what it weighs, like 270 pounds all the way up to 350. I don't think it weighs 350 pounds. Now I used a little shop crane in here to move it and set it on top of the base. It does not weigh 350 pounds. I definitely did pick up the edges of it and stuff. I'm not a big, strong guy. Got a lot of back problems, and I had no problem moving it around. I think 2 guys could very easily pick this up and set it on the base. However, I have a 5-year-old and a wife neither one of them were very interested in helping me with this. So I got it all put together in probably less than an hour and moved over here. In the beginning, I didn't really know what to do. So I got it set up. Didn't know that I'd be doing any in-depth reviews or anything, so I didn't like take a lot of video or photos or anything. Just got it set up, played with it a little bit, and then I had problems. So first thing, it would just intermittently shut off. So I attempted to use the Grizzly customer service. I will say they are pretty attentive. You need to have the model number, serial number, when you purchased it, all that information, because apparently these machines, the g0759, g0704, probably everything Grizzly that they purchase from China and resell goes through a lot of revisions. So you can't just say, hey Grizzly, I have a g0759 and it randomly shuts off. What's the most common fix for that? They'll tell you, well, there's a lot of things it could be, and we need to start with your serial number and the manufacturing date on it. So I did that. Turns out there were some wiring issues. Actually, a lot of wiring issues. So I've had a lot of problems chasing this around. The chip guard that comes with it, that was one of the very first things I deactivated and took off because it is just a giant pain in the butt. Not sure I ever actually tried to do anything with it. It's pretty good size and it's right in the way of everything, so I took it off. So you have to wire those two wires together in this unit. The potentiometer for speed control, it worked sometimes, and then other times it would just ramp up to full speed or it would drop to the minimum. So I sorted through that a little bit. They did send me a new potentiometer, and they did send me 2 new fuse holders, so I soldered in the new fuse holders. One of them was cracked and broken right out of the crate. Didn't realize it was cracked and broken. Here's the remnants of it. It's just a little plastic fuse holder. So I had to solder that in. That fixed most of my problems. A few other little minor things. The biggest one here I'm still having an issue with is the tack. So I don't know how well you can see that. Maybe I can move you around later. It does have a digital tachometer. It works about 75% of the time. I occasionally have to take off the motor cover, and I don't know, there's grease, and I had to adjust the distance in between the pickup and the wheel that goes around the spindle. But now I think I've got it to a point where I'm fairly happy with it. I've done a couple little projects on it where I've had no problems. But just know out of the box, this thing, you know, I'm sure there are people that got lucky and it was 100% out of the box. It appears as though a pretty good chunk of folks, that's not the case. So that was not my experience. Took a little bit of work, but I'm glad I got it. I wish that I would have had a few more dollars to invest, and I would have just got a bigger machine. So even though I've only had it 3 months and it's only got a few hours worth of runtime, I already know too small. And then my next biggest issue, which they don't do a great job on the website or on any of the forums, kind of explaining what the difference is between the g0704 and the g0759, which I bought. I thought it would have all the same capabilities, you know, 1 horsepower, you know, it was the same machine with the DRO. And I guess it kind of is. However, if you get it with the DRO, this machine was never spec'd for one originally from the factory, so just kind of a bolt-on addition. So you do lose some X travel. Just where the scales are set up here. You lose, what is it, about 2.5 inches if you get the power feed. So I can't stress enough, the power feed, get it, or a power feed. I don't know that you necessarily need the Grizzly unit. The Grizzly unit works just fine. I go ahead and kick it on. It works. It's fairly quiet. It's super easy to install. Didn't really have any issues there. It is slow. It says 400 millimeters per minute. It doesn't go that fast. It does have a rapid. You can kind of see the table moving back and forth here. That's all she has. It moves about half of 400 millimeters per minute. But it's a nice unit, I think. It's quiet. If I had to do it again, I wouldn't spend the money to buy the Grizzly unit. I would find another unit, whether that was Amazon or eBay, special, and I would fabric cobble some setup to put on, just because I think for the money, it's just not worth it. So I would have been much better off getting a really low-end eBay special that was designed for Bridgeport, and then fabricating some way for it to interact with the X-axis screw, just because it's so slow and expensive. The one good thing I will say about this is the clutch to disengage it. Means that you can go back to using your regular X-axis handle, so there's no drag because of the clutch. You just disengage the gear setup, so you don't have to interfere with that. However, the unit itself, like I said, you lose several inches of X-axis travel in this direction, from left to right, just because of where the scales are set up. So far that hasn't been a huge deal for me, but it is a pain. You do have to drill and tap the casting to install the limit switch sensor, which I think is a very, very poor design. There's absolutely no reason why Grizzly had to make it this way. Suffice to say, if I did this again, I would not have drilled and tapped my casting, even though it really wasn't that big of a deal. I just would have made a new bracket for it on the mill, because there was already a limit switch set up there, so I could have just as easily just made a new bracket that used the existing holes in the casting. So that's dumb. Grizzly sells it for this unit. Just to be aware, if you do order the $400 Grizzly power feed, they don't provide you with the tap. I think it's a metric 4 by 1 millimeter. You have to have your own tap, which I had in stock. Wasn't a big deal. However, that kind of leads to the next interference. You can kind of see here I have extended the y-axis, because once you get the limit switch assembly, which is unfortunately underneath the vise here, you can't see it very well, you lose, I don't know, maybe 3 inches of y-axis travel. They also don't mention that in the literature. Also, no reason for that. This box could be smaller. However, instead of messing with anything, I just made an extension. Which is the very first project I did once I got the power feed on. I went over to the lathe and I turned down a shaft, and then I stuck this aluminum collar on that I brought this out. I don't know what it is, 3.5 inches. So it gave me all of my Y travel back. Another thing, if you have the g0759 versus the 0704, is you lose about 1.5 inches of y-axis travel, just because of where the scales are mounted on the back side of the machine. As far as actual travel is concerned, for $2,000, unless you buy a used machine, you're just not going to find a mill that has the work envelope that the g0704 has, with factory support. I really considered the Precision Matthews version of this. However, they weren't in stock. And also, I didn't think that they would ship anything but to my nearest town, and I would have had to have come and picked it up. It didn't sound like I could negotiate for them to use DHL, which turns out neither did Grizzly, but I didn't know that at the time. Send you a few minor things. You get a toolbox with some Allen wrenches, and you get this drill chuck. This drill chuck from Grizzly, just absolutely garbage. Just a piece of junk. It's got maybe 15 thou run out, completely unusable. So I took it off the B16 taper, reinstalled it, mounting it in my lathe, and chased it because the actual R8 side of it with the B16 taper wasn't very good. So I recut the taper. That helped a huge amount. But in the end, this chuck was just junk. So I would just plan, maybe first purchase, to buy a different chuck. I happen to go with this Tagara from Shars. It's supposed to be one of the more premium chuck. Huge improvement over the Grizzly stock. I don't know that it would stack up with, well, I know it doesn't stack up with like an Albright. That's what we have at work. Even the drill presses are pretty much all set up with Albright, or the Jacobs, whatever their version of the Albright keyless chuck is. Those are better units. Those units aren't $130 or whatever this thing costs. So that's a huge upgrade. One of your first mill projects, if you do decide to get one of these, is there's no sort of spindle lock. They give you this guy right here, just a knurled handle, with the end turned down with a pin, and that's what they expect you to use on the spindle anytime you need to change tools. And it also comes with this little 8 and 10 millimeter combination wrench to use up here. I decided to ditch those both right away. I've kept this around just in case I lose my little ratchet, but I've just been using a ratchet. And then I built myself a poor man's spindle lock here. So spring loaded, works well. I push this in, I can do whatever I need to. This completely locks up the spindle. Huge improvement. Grizzly should have something maybe more elegant looking than my solution, but they should have some sort of solution right out of the box. This is a joke. There's really no way to finesse this unless you have 3 hands. If you're using, R8 collets, you're going to drop tools. On to things I really like about this machine. The built-in DRO, I think worth it. I know that there are some solutions out there like the eye gauging. They make a kit. eBay, there's a bunch of kits. I've actually been really happy with this unit for what I use it for. It's fairly intuitive. I think if you've ever used any Chinese electronics, you're probably aware that they're kind of awkward, but it's completely usable. I have had to get the manual out a few different times on some different functions. Some of the abbreviations that show up are a little odd, but I do like that it came with this clear little cover, which I took off just for our filming. Just a piece of plastic, keeps all the gunk off of it, but I kept it on there while I've been using it. I've liked it. All the buttons seem to work real well. They have not quite a tactile feel, but it's not the cheapest feeling thing ever. Eventually I do need to build an extension that would bring this arm out farther. Be a nice little project someday. But on to maybe some bigger fixes. So right out the gate, I'm going to move you here. Alright, so I know it's dark, but I think one of the first projects anybody that gets one of these mills needs to do is fab yourself up some sort of mounting solution with feet. So it's not a super heavy mill. I use some 2x3 1/4-inch tubing and then some 2x2 eighth wall tubing to construct this 3/4 10 adjusting feet, and then I use some like black pipe. I don't know if they were 1/4-inch or 1/2-inch fittings. I turned them up on my lathe to make an adapter. This solution seems to work really well. One more thing I did, just because it was fairly rickety, is I filled the bottom of it. These are ballasts out of a boat. I put, 325 pounds worth of steel slabs in the case. That went a long ways towards fixing my problem. The next thing I would consider borderline mandatory is a way to mount this directly to the wall, preferably higher up on the cabinet. So even with close to 400 pounds inside the cabinet, I went ahead and fabbed this guy up just so I can mount it directly to the wall. And now if I give it a shake, almost zero movement. Threaded the end, bolted it to the cabinet, and then I made myself a little adapter that this would thread into, and I screwed it directly to the wall. So I wouldn't go so far as to say my mounting solution here with the base, the weight in the cabinet, and my strut necessarily makes this a rock solid solution, because it's not. But the cabinet itself is now very, very sturdy. It's not going anywhere. It weighs quite a bit more than the mill, and increasing the footprint probably by close to 50% really helped. However, the mill itself, fairly wobbly. I think that's just because of how light it is. 275 pounds is not enough weight, really, for 1 horsepower. Like some of the old Bridgeports, they have 1 horsepower motors on them, but they weigh, 4 times what this guy does. So, good solution. I think in the future, I will probably mount one more strut that goes directly from the column to the wall as well. I haven't got that far yet because I didn't know if this machine was going to stay in this exact same location. I wasn't sure if maybe in the future if this would just become a glorified drill press and I'll buy myself a bigger mill. But for the most part, right now I'm pretty happy with it. The Quill Dro is a nice touch. However, 2 inches is just very little travel. So that's another thing I forgot to mention earlier is the Quill Travel. I thought 2 inches was going to be quite a bit more actual in use than what it ended up being. So can't say I'd be too disappointed about that because those specs are right off the webpage. I do frequently forget to turn off the Quill Dro, so I don't know how many times I've left it on. I did have to replace the batteries. Some other things I wish this machine had is like the Precision Matthews has like an automatic spindle reverse. This machine doesn't have any provisions for that. Power tapping is a little scary with this, just because there's no way to quickly stop the spindle. Show you here, even the e-stop. It's not instant. So there is no mechanical or electrical spindle stop. It just kind of coasts down by itself. It is gear driven. So there's 2 speed. There's a high-low. Low goes from like 100 RPMs to, I guess I could turn it on and find out here. A little over about 1150, and then if I shift this over to high, and in high, when the tachometer is actually working, 2250, 2300, it'll hunt around a little bit. Like I said, it's cold out here, so as everything warms up, you know, I might get another 50 RPM. So another thing I didn't know getting into this size mill is what sort of accessories, size-wise, would be appropriate on the g0704, 0759 platform. So this is a Shars 440V vise. This is about as big a vise as I would probably want. So my jaws are 4 inches wide. I made a couple different sets of jaws, a 5 and a 6 inch, out of aluminum that I've used on little projects I've worked on. There's about 2 and a quarter, somewhere between 2 and a quarter and 2.5 inches from the mill table to the bottom of the vise jaws. So it doesn't eat up a ton of spindle space, but you can still see, I don't have a ton of room here to work on big projects. This is what I started with. This is a little 3-inch cheap eBay, Amazon special vise. Proportions wise, this size vise makes more sense on a mill this size. However, I was not able to find like a good quality 3-inch vise, that opened up to 5 or 6 inches. So it does eat up quite a bit of Z height, but I can always work around that. I can mount something on the table if I need to. Huge improvement over this one. I'm sure everybody's got a set of these or one of these. This is a little, I don't know what it is, a 2-inch vise. Too small, probably as an everyday, but I've used this several times when I needed something long with some machinist screw jacks. I would say that something this size, just not big enough for everyday use, but it has come in handy. I'm glad I have it. It was cheap. This was also an eBay special, but this seems to be much higher quality. So another accessory I knew I was going to need sooner rather than later was a dividing head. So I knew I'd be making a lot of muzzle brakes and other, well, I guess I shouldn't even say, maybe I shouldn't say muzzle brakes on YouTube, but other cylindrical devices with holes in them. So I picked up this. This is the BS0. This is just an import, cheap import dividing head. This is about the right size. I couldn't have gone any larger than this and have it be usable for everything I wanted to do. So I'm glad I picked this up. I've only used it twice, but I think for $225, this will be more than adequate for what I'll be doing on a day-to-day basis with it. So I'm happy I got this. Wasn't 100% to go out of the box. Maybe I'll do a review on it sometime. All right, so if you've stuck with me this far, I guess I would say if you don't have a mill right now, go get one. Do some homework. Read some reviews. I think the g0759 as a package, for $2,000, really is not a bad deal. I knew that it wasn't going to be my last mill. I knew that it wouldn't be big enough. I thought it would be a little bit bigger. I thought it would be a little more sturdy, I guess is the most polite way to say it. Out of the box, it needs some things. So, million different styles, but I would find some way to reliably stop the spindle so you can do changes or use a keyless chuck. Plan on getting a keyless chuck or a chuck of some sort right out of the box. I wish I would have ordered this before I had ordered the mill so that it would just be here, because obviously I use the drill chuck all the time. Vise, 4-inch or a low profile 5-inch, I think is going to be about as big as is usable on this mill, unless you have some sort of special project. Definitely get power feed on the x-axis. Can't do without it. It's great to have. I personally would not buy this unit again. I would buy a much cheaper unit and adapt it for my needs. Be aware with the limitations if you do have power feed, especially this unit, what that's going to do to your x-axis travel and what it will also do to your y-axis. So this wasn't a big project. I wish I would have known I had to drill into the casting to install the power feed, but now that I've done it, not a huge deal. So I think that just about covers it. This is my little mill. If you're looking at getting one of these, I hope that I covered the things that really stood out to myself, having just purchased one of these and spent a little bit of time on it. If you can think of anything else that you'd want to know about its capabilities, just go ahead and leave a message down below. I'll try to answer all of them. Just be aware of the limitations going into it. Alright, well thanks for coming over and hanging out in the shop with me here for a little bit. I hope you have a great day. Hey, thank you for watching. If you made it all the way through 30 minutes or whatever this is going to end up being once it's edited, I appreciate it. Also, if you have any comments, anything I should do or could do better, let me know. I'm not a professional videographer. I don't do this for a living, and I'm also not a machinist. But if there's anything I can do better, let me know. So, thanks once again. I appreciate it. Have a good day.